Friends, welcome to episode 17 of Vibe with Venerables. 1 hour of live Dharma and dialogue where you get to talk directly to a respected Venerable. I'm Ming, co-founder of Buddhism-dot-net and your host. Today, we are joined by a new friend to the show, Venerable Samten. Even though Venerable Samten is new to the show, she has been with Sarvasthi Abbey for a long time. So in 1996, the future Venerable Choni took the future Venerable Samten to a Dharma talk by Venerable Thubten Chodron. And then it left a deep impression in her mind. Subsequently, she spent 8 months in India and Nepal studying the Dharma, and then 3 months in Sarvasthi Abbey. And that experience fueled her fire to ordain. And then in 2012, Venerable Samten ordained and became the Abbey's 6th Bhikshuni. So we are delighted to have somebody of her seniority and authority to join us. Today, we begin our 3-week series on boundless joy, specifically looking at the beautiful quality of empathic joy, which is the mental quality of rejoicing in the good fortune of others. And as usual, Venerable will speak for roughly 30 minutes and then answer your questions live. And as a reminder, this session will be recorded and uploaded onto YouTube later. And if you're comfortable doing so, we'd like to invite you to turn your camera on so that Venerable can see your lovely faces on the screen in front of her. With that, Venerable Samten, can we invite you to lead us in the opening prayer, and if you'd like to, a little bit of meditation?
I'd be happy to. Thanks. And welcome, everyone. It's a great honor and pleasure to be talking about this very beautiful topic with you today. And so to get our minds and bodies prepared for this, let's just do a little bit of breathing meditation to get ourselves settled in the space that we're in. So you want to make sure, I'm sure most of us are sitting on a chair, which is fine. The most important thing is that our spine is upright and relaxed. And if you want to try this hand position, you can have your right hand resting in your left with thumbs touching. And our hands are just resting lightly on our lap. So you can lower your eyes, but don't close them completely, because if we do that, we'll start drifting off to sleep, or we'll be daydreaming, and we'll really be heading to sleep pretty soon after that. And it's very hard to stay focused. So let's just take a few moments right now to bring our attention to the breath. And each time our mind goes leaping off to another subject, we very gently and carefully bring our mind back to the breath without judging ourselves at all. We just keep our mind focused on the breath. So we'll do this just for a few moments. So now let's bring to mind some of the qualities of a Buddha's mind. And for some of you, you may have been studying this topic for decades, and for some of you, it might be quite new. But the omniscient mind of a Buddha has immeasurable love, immeasurable compassion. And with the Buddha's mind, the Buddha is able to see all of our past lives, what we've done in the past to bring us to this very moment right now. The Buddha knows our personality traits, our preferences, what our strengths are and weaknesses. And he views every single one of us, every single living being, with this immeasurable love and compassion, not a hint of judgment, just this overflow of compassion and love fueled by his immeasurable wisdom. And so all of these qualities and many more now take the form of Shakyamuni Buddha in the space in front of us. He's seated on a throne on top of a sun and moon disk. His right hand is resting on his right knee. His left hand is holding an alms bowl filled with the nectar of the Dharma. And his face is beautiful and serene. So we really want to feel like we're in the presence of a Buddha. We're not just creating an image of a thangka or a painting. And if this visualization is really quite new for you, you can imagine a ball of light at your heart or in the space in front if that's easier. And this warm, glowing ball of light is sending light rays in all directions. It's soothing and comforting. Surrounding us are all living beings in human form. Our mother of life, this life is on our left. Our father of this life is on our right. Those that we are feeling close to and cherish and love are around us on either side behind us. And those people that we're temporarily labeling as difficult or challenging are right in between us and the Buddha. So we can't turn away from them. We can't ignore them. And we can imagine now that we're leading all living beings and going for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And the refuge and bodhicitta prayer, followed by the 4 immeasurables, will be in the chat box. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma and the other far-reaching practices I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma and the other far-reaching practices I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma and the other far-reaching practices I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. And so maybe right now you're feeling concern for one person in particular, having recited these 4 measurables. Maybe there's a group of people, a country, a continent, a situation, and we're wishing these living beings to have these 4. So now let's cultivate our motivation for our time together today. And it's so incredibly fortunate that we have this situation right now where we have the luxury to engage in spiritual practice or to be even curious about the Dharma. And it's so clear when you read the news each day that there are so many people on the planet and animals and other life forms that are in situations of tremendous mental and physical suffering. They might right now be living in a war zone. They might be still putting their lives back together after a natural disaster. They might be at the bedside of someone who's in the process of dying. Or they're dealing with the grief that has just come as their dear one has passed away, and they're wondering how to move forward. There are so many people on the planet right now that are facing food scarcity, illness, violence. The types of suffering in samsara are vast, and they range from very extreme to the smallest irritation. And right now we have this amazing fortune that the causes and conditions have come together for us to think about spiritual matters, to be interested in how to grow our kindness and our wisdom. And if you've been doing more thinking over the past many years of your life, you might be already comfortable with this idea of bodhicitta, this aspiration to become a Buddha, so that at that point we can truly be of benefit to every living being that we encounter. So let's rejoice in all the hard work we've done in the past, in past lives, and in this life, to bring about the very fortunate situation we're in right now. So, I'm very delighted to have this opportunity to talk about this very beautiful immeasurable. Venerable Chodron and His Holiness the Dalai Lama refer to this one as empathic joy. And for this definition of empathic joy, I'm going to be referring to reading from Volume 5 of the Library of Wisdom and Compassion, written by His Holiness and Venerable Chodron. It's an absolutely beautiful volume. Right now, as you may know, if you're following the the Happy's teachings, Venerable's unpacking Volume 4 right now. And she's about halfway through, so it might be a year or two away from when she gets to Volume 5, but we're going to dive in right now and take a quick peek, seeing what they say about this empathic joy. So they define this mental state as delight in the happiness and good fortune of others. So the function of this kind of mental state is to oppose envy. And it manifests as the abandonment of jealousy and boredom. And its proximate cause is seeing others' success. So, let's start off right now with what is the problem with jealousy? I'm sure everyone has experienced this mental state. And if we had more time, I'd open this up for discussion, but we all know that jealousy is a big problem because it makes me so miserable. It is a mental state where, oh my gosh, I'm trapped in this very narrow view. And the thing that's probably fueling the jealousy is that there's attachment to respect. I want some material gain. I'm unable to bear the good qualities that other people have, or their opportunities, or their even virtue. And when we're in the grip of this mental state of jealousy, we can't stand it that someone is better than us in a certain way. And so when you really look at jealousy and what it does to our mind and heart, my mind is completely contracted in pain when I'm caught in this state. And because I'm comparing myself to somebody else, then I must be losing out. There's nothing I can do about it, and I'm sitting here fuming. And I'm trying desperately sometimes to think of a plan to get even, or to show how I'm actually the better person. And then when I go through those kinds of thinking patterns, then I end up feeling very badly about myself for having those thoughts and having these plans. Oh, but still the situation is so intolerable that this person is getting what I wanted. And the universe isn't fair. And that's the miserable state of jealousy. So in another teaching that Venerable gave on jealousy a few years ago, she gives the very sage advice of, there's this saying that you've heard in the past: be careful of what you wish for, because you might get it. And so the very interesting thing about jealousy, when we're caught, it's an afflicted mental state, and we're caught in this, we don't really bother to check up with what we want to see if it's really going to make us happy. And we're just stuck in this sort of thought of, I want it, I'm not getting it, and they have it. And I'm craving what they have. And yet, if we had used a little bit of wisdom before we launch into this afflicted mental state, what we might be asking ourselves before we just let loose with this is, okay, so what's going to really happen if I have that ability or opportunity? And what else is going to come along with this? So let's imagine that you've been pining for this position at your workplace, and you really want that promotion, and you feel that you've been just investing your whole life in working for the company so hard. You've made all these sacrifices. You've, done things where you've stepped away from family time, and you've worked overtime already. And it's clear to me that I'm the most qualified person. But if I get this promotion, what comes with it? Right now, I'm working 60 hours a week. The promotion will probably mean that I get to work 80 hours a week. And then I'll be more stressed. And I'll have less time. If I thought I had more time for practice, I'll even have less time for spiritual practice. In fact, spiritual practice with 80-hour work weeks, that's out the door. And then there are other people who want my job. And then there's all this pressure of having to perform all the time. And is that going to make me happy? So I think we're all very familiar with this very suffering state. And the wonderful thing about cultivating this mind of empathic joy is that we're really practicing on looking and rejoicing and being glad about the opportunities that others have. We're rejoicing in their good qualities. We're rejoicing in their talents. We see that they are really well suited to what they've just been given, the thing that we've been chasing so hard to get. And so this is a mind of rejoicing from our heart authentically in the good circumstances, the talents, the virtues of others, and their well-being. And the beautiful thing about this mental state is that it also helps with what I'm currently struggling with every single day, especially, I would say, in the last year. And it's the situation that I open the news, I look at the front page, and I encounter mostly stories that are showing people in very suffering states. And if I'm not careful, this mind of compassion, which you've been hearing about in the past vibes, this authentic compassion can be replaced with a mind of personal distress, where I become more upset about, I am so upset that those people are suffering in this way. And when I'm so upset and heartbroken, I actually lose the people I'm trying to pay attention to. And personal distress is then a huge obstacle to cultivating real compassion. So empathic joy can look at a situation and not dismiss what's going on. And I'll give you some examples in a minute how we can do this. It's not trying to dismiss what's going on in the world and just focusing on one positive factor. We're still acknowledging that there's tremendous suffering, but there are people in that situation trying to benefit others, and how beautiful that is. So I'm going to share a story, first of all, that Rachel, who's on the call, shared with us quite recently. And I had no idea about this woman who's doing this kind of work right in Gaza. So let me tell you a little bit about Hadil Gabari, and I'm sure I'm not pronouncing her name correctly, Garbawi. She's a journalist and a community activist. And she started this idea of setting up an educational tent in Gaza, and it's for marginalized, displaced children. So can you imagine, in the midst of Gaza, there's this woman who now she has a lot of help. There's a lot of energy behind what she's doing, but she had this aspiration to make a difference for kids and for families in this very challenging situation in Gaza. And she's having great success. So, Hadil is 28 years old. She's an English literature graduate. She's a mother of one with a child on the way. And she single-handedly set up this camp for kids in July of 2024 without any government support or external funding. The camp can accommodate about 50 to 60 kids. They're admitted on a rotational basis every 3 months. They're taught the Palestinian national curriculum, and they participate in arts and crafts. And the main goal of this is to give these kids hope and their families hope. So just reading about this story and what she's doing and how this has grown, I can look at the situation in Gaza and it breaks my heart every day. And then you see someone who's doing something like this in Gaza, in that situation. And we can rejoice naturally. What a fantastic service she's doing for these kids and for many people in Gaza, and how she can inspire other people to do similar things in different parts of the world where there's different kinds of suffering. Then another person that I rejoice in who's doing very difficult things around the world, I'm sure you've heard of Jose Andres. He's the founder of the World Central Kitchen. And initially his work was responding to natural disasters around the planet and providing nourishing meals. And then I think it was in 2010, he expanded his projects around the world to help in places that are places of conflict, like feeding people in Ukraine. And now he's expanded into, when he can, places in the Middle East, in Gaza, for example. And so this mind of empathic joy is, you don't have to look at, these might be considered heroes for you. I mean, there's certain heroes for me, and I'm not sure I have the capacity to do either of those things. But we can just look around in our own world that we live in our family, in our community, and just look at what people are doing, very, common acts of kindness that benefit people. So one example I can bring to mind is I have an aunt who lives in Calgary, Alberta. She's 90 this year. She's the same age as His Holiness. And she's on oxygen 24/7. She recently got pneumonia, and all of her neighbors who've known her for decades jumped up to help with her. They were bringing her meals. They wanted to make sure she didn't go to the hospital, because if you're 90 and you've got damaged lungs and you're on oxygen, If you end up in a hospital, the chances of you making it out of the hospital are very slim. So here she is, her neighbors are helping her. I look at the person that I live with, Venerable Thubten Chodron, who's the abbess of Sravasti Abbey. And right now we have a program at the Abbey for people exploring monastic life. And every lunchtime they kind of shift who gets to sit with her. And so she takes the time to speak and answer their questions. And she takes so much care in connecting with the people at her table that she doesn't really get the time to eat her lunch. And so I see that she packs up her lunch, after we've done her prayers, and she goes back to her little cottage to eat her lunch. I see that this topic is so huge, and I'm just scratching the surface. I think I've got about 3 minutes, and I've got about another hour left of material to share with you. Let's see. What do I do here? I think what I'm going to do, it may take us a little bit over, Ming, but I'm going to share a story that I just love from Geshe Sopa's Volume 2. This is Geshe Sopa's commentary on the Lam Rim. This Volume 2 is actually on karma. The whole volume is on karma. But there's a story in here that shows the rejoicing of a little poor woodcutter. So this story touches on many things. It touches on empathic joy. It touches on expanding karma, which is one of the 4 general characteristics of karma. But it's just beautiful. It's heartwarming. And again, it shows us how we can cultivate this mental state. So the story is from the Sutra of the Wise and Foolish. And this tells the story of a child named Golden Gem. And this baby was born with his fist tightly closed. And whenever his parents opened his fingers, they found a gold coin. And no matter how many times they took the coin from his hand, another one would appear. Amazed by this miraculous event, the family went to the Buddha and asked what it meant. And the Buddha explained that many millions of years earlier, at the time of Buddha Kasyapa, before Shakyamuni Buddha, a rich and noble family invited the Buddha and his followers to their home, where they wished to honor him with offerings. Living nearby was a young boy from a poor family who had nothing to offer. Every day he walked into the hills to gather a small amount of firewood to sell in the market, and from that hard work he earned a meager living. When the poor boy heard that this noble family had invited the Buddha, he gathered up his meager savings and went off to watch the grand event. Clutching a few pennies in his hand, the boy thought, I'm just a poor woodcutter, and it's because I didn't create sufficient merit in the past that I'm so terribly poor now, and I have nothing to offer. The people in this great family, though, they have such wealth that they're able to invite the Buddha and all his followers, and by their generosity, they're creating even more meritorious karma. How wonderful it is that they've obtained this precious opportunity. Now, this is a kid thinking this, right? How wonderful it is that this family has created in the past all this merit, that in this life they're wealthy and they can invite the Buddha for a meal. And with that attitude, he offered his hard-earned pennies to the Buddha. And the Buddha accepted his offering with a smile. As a result of that act of generosity toward the Buddha, together with his rejoicing in the virtues of others, that woodcutter was born into human rebirths for many, many subsequent lives. And in all those lives, he was born with a golden coin in his hand, and he lived a life of wealth. The woodcutter's good karma was still not exhausted, for once again in the present life he was born as this baby with a gold coin in his hand. When the woodcutter made his gift, he also offered a special dedication prayer in which he expressed powerful faith in the Buddha and respect for his disciples. And he rejoiced all the merits that they were creating. So as a result of that heartfelt prayer, when the boy with the golden coin in his hand got older, he ordained as a Buddhist monk and eventually attained the highest spiritual result. So, since I've run out of time, essentially, in a nutshell, when we consciously cultivate empathic joy, we see so much goodness in the world. And instead of the world seeming bleak and filled with narrow-minded people and corrupt governments and people taking advantage of people and people just causing harm, our view will expand to see the goodness in others and the many ways in which people help each other on a daily basis. And so I think I've run out of time, amazingly.
Thank you, Venerable. Well, you have as much time as you want, and we can continue talking in a minute. So, my friends, we have entered the discussion session. And if you have any questions for the Venerable, or if you just want to share your reflection with the Venerable, please feel free to use the hand raising function in Zoom, and then I will invite you to unmute yourself. So, Venerable, I want to repeat something you just said because it was very powerful. So usually when I hear about the topic of empathic joy, it's usually as you say in the beginning of your talk, which is don't be jealous, don't be jealous. That guy has a promotion, okay, rejoice on his promotion. But you gave it another spin, which is I found extremely valuable, which is to rejoice in the goodness, the good acts of other people, especially the type of acts that create merits for themselves, right? And when they're engaging in generosity, when they're engaging in goodness, kindness, giving, and so on. And I can see how powerful that is. I can see that it is inspiring for us. Also, it changes the way we see the world, right?
Yeah.
Because usually the way we see the world is like this sucks, like this war. There's like whatever. Things are bad because bad things make the news.
Yeah.
And then suddenly we become aware of like people doing good and rejoicing in them. Then we balance out that. It's kind of, oh, in addition to all that nonsense, there's also a lot of people doing a lot of good. Starting with my mom, right? I mean, starting with all our moms.
Yeah.
And there are people who surround us, like the daily acts of kindness, like our sisters, our brother, and so on, like our spouses. So this is extremely valuable. I want to thank you for offering us this teaching. And while we're waiting for a question, I want to ask you something personal, Venerable,
Okay.
which is how has this practice of reflecting on empathic joy, how has it impacted your own practice?
That's a good question. And I heard this teaching many, many years ago, and I was very inspired by it. I thought, wow, fantastic. And then, I didn't do anything about it. And so all of these four immeasurables, any Dharma topic, we have to really sincerely put effort into it.
Mm,
And so many years ago, we started sharing a book in Spokane. We were invited to go to Spokane. And the book that we were unpacking with the people there was a book that Venerable Chodron wrote with Dr. Russell Coates called
mm,
An Open-Hearted Life. It's a beautiful book written for the planet. And just the practice of sharing that book with people, it really encourages, first of all, how to cultivate compassion. But this idea of rejoicing in the virtues of others, we're asking the people who came to the talk to practice this daily.
mm,
And so when you ask people to do something daily, of course, I want to do it too. And so I made it really a daily practice for quite some time to really make a point of looking at the people I'm living with here, or just remembering my upbringing, with my family. I was very fortunate. I had very caring parents. We were certainly not wealthy. I learned only as an adult that, they were just getting by, scraping by. But it's so easy to turn your attention, and this gets us out of the self-centered thought too. We can just turn our attention and just notice what people are doing around us. And it has to be a daily practice. It really does. And it's even more impactful when we're doing it throughout the day. And so then it can become habitual, and then it starts to shift, as you mentioned. It starts to shift my view from the self-centered thought, which makes me see everything like this that pertains to I, me, mine, mine. And I can open these blinders and just notice all the goodness that's happening around me all throughout the day. And they're not heroic acts often. It's just these kindnesses. Like now we're in Spokane giving talks, and someone is bringing a very elderly person to the talks because she can't drive anymore. And she's so happy, and they're happy. So, like that.
Oh, thank you. It's beautiful. We have a question from Dr. Cheng. Yes, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, first, thank you so much for your precious Dharma talk. I really wish, including myself, everybody can have empathetic joy. That would be really wonderful if we can celebrate other people's success. But at the same time, I know it doesn't always happen. So I was wondering how both for practitioners and non-practitioners, how we can feel empathetic joy. Maybe practitioners, it might be a little easier because we can do some specific practices to cultivate it. But I have many friends who are not practicing at all, but they still suffer so much from jealousy. So if you could share tips for tips or like method for both practitioners and non-practitioners, that would be really grateful.
Okay, I'll try. It's a good question. Right now, it's my impression, at least in the United States, there's such divisions between people, politically. There's so many ways that, people are, and we have all been raised in a school system that actually we had to be competitive, right? We had to compete with other people to get into a school, to get into a job situation, to get into a club even, or sports, or a music thing. And so we are very rehearsed in being competitive, and then when we don't get what we're competing for, then this jealousy happens. But maybe we are forgetting that even at our whatever level we're at in our practice, we might not even be Buddhists. Just recognizing how painful jealousy is. And then just by the practice of, you might be going out for coffee with some friends, or you're you're at your workplace and somebody is feeling so jealous about the person who just got the promotion. And maybe just very in a low-key way, you can just point out some of the good qualities of that person and just say, I just really admire how that person is able to keep calm in a very stressful situation. I really admire that quality in them, and I aspire to have that kind of composure when I'm in a pressure cooker situation. So it's not like we're telling someone not to be jealous, because when we're in the throes of jealousy, well, we're there. But just by our example, we're influencing people more than we even know. And they might be just influenced by, wow, she's right. That person bugs me so much because they always get that kind of opportunity, but she's right. That person is really composed and they make very good choices, even under extreme pressure. That's one example. If it's someone you know really well, and it's just depending on our relationship with someone too. If it's someone that you really know, you might just, say, I'm just curious. You might just see if they're willing to even look at their jealousy. But you just say, maybe you say it like this, I care about you deeply. And I'm just wondering if you'd like to explore this mental state of jealousy that's causing you so much suffering, because it makes me sad to see you suffer so much when you're caught in this. And, just maybe say, jealousy, just have them explore. What does it do for you? Does it make you happier? And then you might say, initially when I started working with my own jealousy, the antidote is to rejoice in the success and virtues of others. It's the last thing you want to do. So you don't do it when you're in the, but when you're calmed down and you're more settled, then we can start practicing it, and we have to nudge your mind. It's like learning how to like eating Brussels sprouts that are so healthy for us. I can't stand them, but I do try and eat them because they're so healthy. So I'm not sure if I've given you what you're hoping for yet, but that's my try.
Thank you. Venerable, I have a follow-up question, which is from the practitioner's point of view, is the key part of practicing empathic joy, is that relinquishing? So it's like, because I'm jealous or envious of this person. This person is so much better than me. He has everything I want. So the antidote of that is to relinquish what I want, and then I will stop hating this person. So that's how I see it. Is that the correct antidote? Is that the core of it?
I actually haven't. That may work for you, Ming.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I haven't tried that approach myself.
mm,
I know that what works for me is I have to settle myself and get out of that, let go of the jealousy
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and just get settled. Because that mental state is it's just so, it's so inaccurate. And then I have to laugh at myself, like, you know,
ha ha ha,
why are you going down that road that is just a dead end? And when you have to do this a lot to experience that focusing on someone else's good situation and good qualities actually brings a mind of joy. But you have to have that experience over and over again.
Mm.
So yeah.
I see. So repetition of so bringing to mind the goodness of other people and just repeating a repetition of that.
And maybe it starts with people that we
Mm-hmm.
already admire. So for
Mm,
example, I'm sure that
mm,
everyone
mm,
knows enough about His Holiness the Dalai Lama
mm-hmm,
to bring to mind something that he has done that is so incredibly beneficial for the planet,
mm,
and how he continually acts and teaches from this place of nonviolence.
mm-hmm,
And everything he's done in his whole life has been to bring an understanding of kindness and wisdom to the planet.
mm-hmm,
And when you think about his good qualities and just notice the impact that it has in your mind,
mm-hmm,
then you can go and do the same thing with strangers.
mm,
Maybe it's someone who's just served you something at the convenience store.
mm-hmm, mm,
But maybe
mm.
actually you back up even further and you start with yourself, because
Right,
sometimes we're very not skilled at noticing our own good qualities. And we all have good qualities, and we
right.
like to sort of criticize ourselves more.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But we start with ourselves,
mm,
then close people, then
mm-hmm,
strangers, and then we do the
mm,
difficult ones.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, thank you. I have it came to mind the example of something difficult and in a shocking way, and I want to run this by you and get your comments on that. So this was related to what you said earlier, polarization within America, and this was there was a demonstration. There were two sides, and there was a counter demonstration. So there was on one side the MAGAs, the neo Nazis, people wearing the MAGA hats, and people carrying Nazi signs and
Mhm.
along a line. Yes. And then on the other side, like literally like 1 foot or 2 feet away, there are the other on the other side. And they were like literally like they're holding signs and they are literally shouting at each other. Shouting. And then because they were like moving, and then as that was going on, somebody on the other side, the liberal side, slipped and fell. She's kind of an elderly woman,
Oh,
or middle-aged woman, slipped and fell. And then the people on the other side, the MAGA side, the holding the other side, they look concerned and they rush over to help her. Uh, like that is like a microcosm, right, of what we're just talking about. I mean, people we think on the other side, oh, those are the neo-Nazis. Suddenly their goodness showed. And so, yeah, and it's a little bit confusing. And how should we think about this?
well, it just shows that, we all have in our hearts
Mm-hmm.
this wish to be happy.
Mm.
And His Holiness says this all the time. Our Buddhist teachers say this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the wish not to suffer.
Mm.
And so seeing that elderly woman fall,
Mm-hmm.
the humanity in the so-called enemy
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
was exposed.
Mm.
And we like to, concretize certain people
Mm-hmm.
and put them in a box, and
Mm-hmm.
we lock that box and we throw away the key, and they're
Mm-hmm.
always that. They can only be that. And, I don't want to go near them because they're
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
When in fact, our minds are changing moment by moment.
Yeah.
We're reacting to everything we see and hear moment by moment.
Yeah.
And how beautiful. I hope that was captured on social media. You must, I guess that's where you saw it.
I don't know. I saw it on the
I mean,
news. Yeah.
How beautiful
Yeah.
that the so-called enemy
Yeah.
has that compassionate reaction.
Right. Right.
And all of a sudden, well, who's the enemy here? Oh
Right.
my gosh.
Yeah.
And so this
So,
is what we need to look for all the time,
yeah.
that I'm not concretizing, I'm not putting people in a box
Yes.
and labeling them because of the hat they wear or the logo on their shirt,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just think,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
on that side and I'm on this side, when in fact,
Yeah.
we're just, it's just,
Yeah.
there is so much more we have in common than we have
Yeah.
in differences.
Yes. So in a single mind moment, your enemy can become people who give you a loving kindness and compassion.
And if you look at your mind honestly,
Mm-hmm.
if I look at my mind honestly throughout the day,
Mm-hmm.
those categories of friend, enemy, and stranger, we can be putting people, shifting them around all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone in the morning gives you a compliment, friend. Somebody later on says, Samten, that was about the worst dishwashing job that I've seen you do in many months. Enemy.
Yes.
And then if we ignore them long enough, they're stranger.
Yes.
All day long.
True. Yeah. Thank you. So we have a question from Louis, and then after that, Jim.
Hi there. Thank you for the wonderful talk. My question is, so I've studied it and practiced generally mostly within the Theravada lineage, and even within that context specifically, I noticed eventually a really interesting kind of nuanced but significant difference in the teachings on mudita between different sources. The main example I'm thinking of right now is that in the suttas themselves, they're described and taught, the Brahma Viharas are all described and taught with this unconditional attitude. So similar to like what's referred to with, the name in the Tibetan lineage of the immeasurables. But then interestingly, I was very interested to find in the later texts, like the Visuddhimagga, like 1,000 years after the Buddha's lifetime, kind of adds this particular sort of caution or a qualifier, basically stating that there's a quote I remember that's mudita fails in the case of the unworthy, which it kind of implies that it should be reserved for beings whose success is rooted in wholesome actions specifically. So points to this potential sort of a caveat or a danger in a sense that rejoicing in unwholesome gains could unwittingly nourish even, envy or complacency or distorted values in the practitioner. So I was just curious how you feel about this type of a distinction in the practice. Like, is it skillful or unskillful? Thank you.
So let's see if I'm understanding your question. If we're rejoicing in the non-virtue of others, if we do that, we're going to unleash this, we're going to be, well, first of all, that would be totally unskillful to rejoice in the non-virtues of others. If I'm understanding your question correctly, is that right?
Yes. So versus just sort of an unqualified, more unconditional, just boundlessly radiating mudita for someone's success without any discernment about the nature of that success or the actions that led to it.
I would say that would be very unskillful.
Mm-hmm.
And we wouldn't be doing ourselves any kind of, that would come out of great confusion. If I was rejoicing in someone who's orchestrating the killing of many people, Whew, wow. That alone would be creating tremendous negative karma in my own mind. So there's the thing. When we rejoice in the non-virtues of others, we're creating the same kind of karma as the people who are doing those things. And that would take us down a very disastrous path in our practice. So yeah, it has to have discrimination and, some element of wisdom here. And, when you look at rejoicing in the good qualities or the good fortune of others or acts of kindness in others, when you do that, it just naturally brings warmth and an uplifting of the mind, when you do it. And it would be horrifying to rejoice in non-virtue.
Mm-hmm.
So am I getting to your question?
Yes, I think so. It seems my sense from that is that it's sort of built in or implied, sort of in a point that consistent with the fact that it's not often even explicitly articulated, that it's almost just sort of to be taken for granted that it's wholesome success born of wholesome deeds.
Yes, and tangentially in a certain way, when His Holiness speaks about even the Chinese people, the Chinese government, he never speaks about them, in a way that is, what am I trying to say? He sees people making very, very damaging decisions in the Chinese government that have really harmed Tibet for 7 decades now. He just holds them with compassion and just sees that their decisions are coming out of profound and deep confusion and ignorance. But, he doesn't, he just holds them with compassion. It's just so inspiring for me.
Just one quick follow-up and point on that. I appreciate you saying that because it reminds me of another aspect of that teaching that I was seeing that would say in some situations where mudita then might not be the most appropriate quality, then you might switch to, as you said, either compassion or even equanimity in the presence of that person experiencing the form of success that they've cultivated, through unskillful means. Then maybe it's a different Brahma-vihara or immeasurable that's more appropriate in that case. So yeah. Well, thank you very much. It's very helpful.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, that's why the 4 immeasurables just can so beautifully feed each other. Mm-hmm. And they're there as a foursome for this very reason that you mentioned. Thank you.
They're like the Fantastic Four. You can't have one missing. And Jim gets the last question. Jim, can you unmute yourself?
Did that work?
Yes, it does.
Okay. I really wanted to say that I appreciated what you had said about how when you get caught up in this kind of mindset, it gets distracting from thinking about necessarily others and what needs to be done. And it sort of leads more into the sort of, I guess, me and my and mine. No, those aren't your exact words, but that's sort of what I pulled from what you said. So I really appreciated that. And I have a situation where I think it was the Chenrezig talk that I listened to, where they referenced someone as being a supreme teacher. And I sort of have that kind of situation. And I liked what you said about sort of trying to acknowledge and recognize things throughout the day. And I just wonder if there's a meditation or some other maybe additional tips that you can give along those lines.
There's a very beautiful teaching. It's in the Lamrim topics, which means the steps on the path to awakening. And it's the meditation on the kindness of others. And it's just a beautiful meditation. And it's part of the, one of the ways of cultivating bodhicitta. So you can find this in any Lamrim text. And just doing this meditation over and over again, we start with our mother, who, brought us into this life. And In some cases, people have been raised by their father. In some cases, things just didn't work out so well for our birth parents, and they weren't able to do the job for a while, so someone else did. And the very fact that we're still alive and talking to each other in this room right now is that, people deeply cared. And there's teachers that we can think of that, encourage us along the way. So this topic of reflecting on the kindness of others throughout our entire life, starting from the time of our birth, it just is so beautiful. And it just shows how interconnected we are and how, it really is the situation that we are really bound to people in this life, mostly by being the recipients of immeasurable kindness. And it just
I think,
so...
I'm sorry, I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you were finished for a moment. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Did you have something?
I was just going to say, I think I'm familiar with that meditation, and I thank you for reminding me of it, because it makes perfect sense that would help generate, what we're talking about here. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, with that, Venerable, can you lead us in a closing dedication and a blessing?
Sure. So let's get ourselves settled into our meditation posture again, if you've lost it a bit. And let's just reflect for a few minutes on what was shared and see what is touching your heart when you think about this very beautiful mental state of empathic joy, which is authentically rejoicing in the good qualities and virtues and opportunities of others. And we can imagine that all the merit that we've created right now in this past 30 plus minutes, hour, is taking the form of a ball of light at our heart. And the light from this ball of light is going in all directions, touching all living beings, bringing them everything they need in this moment. Things they need to stay alive, to be well, and also situations to allow for spiritual curiosity and eventually practice. And to seal all this merit, we'll end with a dedication of merit. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you so much, Venerable. That was beautiful. Friends, let's all bow to our teacher. Thank you. Thank you, Venerable, for being with us. Friends, this recording will be uploaded onto the Buddhism.net YouTube channel. So please like, subscribe, and share with all your friends. And those of you who are watching this on YouTube, please share this. Please share your reflection in the comment section if you're inspired to. And for those of you inspired to practice dana or generosity towards Venerable Samten, please donate directly to Sarvasti Abbey. We'll be sharing the link by chat and by email. So next week, we'll continue our series on boundless joy with my dear friend, our dear friend, Venerable Damcho. So remember, if your joy is bounded, you ain't getting what you're paid for. So don't miss Venerable Damcho. Come see us next week. With that, thank you